Hey, welcome to Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and just like any other time, we have another special guest today. Today, we have a true honor talking to Gina. Gina, she is going to share with us not just her amazing story. She used to be a bartender. She used to be a former nun, and she has a very, I would say interesting story because it has a lot of twists and turns. I mean, from her childhood journey, she had a lot of surgeries, she had a lot of devastating loss and crisis on her faith. So we're going to learn also a little bit later about her book that I will let you know about that title a little bit later in the show because I want you to tune in to our guest right now. So once again, we have Gina Economopoulos to the show, and I want to say thank you for your time. How are you doing today?
Very good. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here, and it's a joy.
I got to practice your last name about 10 times, and I'm so happy that you've been patient with me because I know the pain. I've been Shamia my whole life. Shamia, so I appreciate you being patient with me, but your story is awesome. I had the privilege to just read about your bio before we started, and a little bit last night, and what's cool about you is that without hesitation, you kept pushing forward despite struggles in your life. So that's where I kind of want to start this conversation for our audience. Kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and some of the things that you had to overcome even in your childhood.
Yep, it sounds good. Once again, it's good to be here, and it's true. I like how you shared it. I just overcame. I just kept without me realizing it. I was born in New York from Long Island, one of 8 kids, 7th child, loving, unconditional family of love. But yet being the 7th child, I was born with a lot of physical problems. So I had many surgeries. I inherited what my father had, like extra bone tumors. So they got in the way, you go for surgery. And so that was my childhood. I was used to it. At the same time, my 7 siblings were athletic, beautiful, and everything, and I was limited. So I compared myself, and I developed my own personal insecurity, my low self-esteem. I didn't like myself. I compared myself, and that, in a sense, stuck with me throughout my life. And so I went to school. College in Connecticut. And I thought that was my get out of have fun free card for my family, for my parents. I mean, not that they were strict, but I was like, yeah, college, fun. And to be honest, I was trying to find where I belong. I was trying to fit in, looking for love in all the wrong places because I didn't like myself. I wanted to be liked. And if I'm around the cool people, this gang that loves me, gives me attention, I'm like, yeah, I'm on board. But it only happens, maybe a few hours a night. And then the next day I'm by myself. And so those feelings of that loneliness and that emptiness just stayed with me. But at the same time, I think what helped me persevere is that I had a smile. Everybody loved me. All I did was smile. Yeah, I'm fine. Yes, I got to go for another surgery. Oh, yeah, that happened to me. And so I just took on this personality. What everyone would say is that I always felt like if anything is going to bad happen, it'll happen to me. And I got used to it. So it was something I got used to. And I went to college. I was hoping, praying, or thinking I would find my man, my Prince Charming. Everybody does. Why not? Why can't I? But of course, I didn't. I got into the college scene, the drinking, the other stuff, and I didn't. By the time I graduated with a degree with no guy, so I didn't have a Prince Charming in my life, and so I went at that point. I went home to go live with my parents. This time they had retired and moved to Pennsylvania. They still had a child who was 13 years old at the time because my mom had him when she was 49. So went home and and that's where I bartended. We all need a job, right? When you get out of school, tell your parents, yes, I'm working. Got a degree in social work, but found bartending. Why not?
No, I mean, I think it's a lot of people who can relate to some parts of your story. For example, yeah, when you get out of college, first thing you're gonna be doing is paying back them student loans. So a job is the number one priority. But I want to touch on what you said about trying to fit in. I think a lot of young people today, or young adults, or just people in general, we all know that period in our life where we're trying to fit in. And for being honest, just a lot of times where we're still trying to fit in. And I think that's important to highlight because what you said was interesting is that you were used to bad news. You were used to basically being let down, life happening. And it's like a lot of lemons coming, but nothing to uh, give you uh, satisfying taste to those lemons that keep you sour. And I want to talk about that because your book, I said I was going to tease the book title of your that you authored. The title of the book is "Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk," and I think that's a great title to explore even further in the conversation because a lot of times when we are feeling sour or we just feel like life just keeps pouring rain on what we're trying
Mm,
to accomplish or what our goals and our dreams, like you say, you wanted to have your Prince Charming, but you had to get a job, after college, after school. And what I think is a lot of times things shift in our lives beyond our control. And when we realize that there's a bigger picture, then now we can shift with life versus life just
yeah.
passing us by and we don't go anywhere. So
Yeah.
from that, I want to let you chime in about your book because I think the title it speaks for
Yeah,
us.
it does. I didn't, as you know, when you're in the midst of it, you don't realize it as time goes on. Like in the midst of it, yes, it was pouring rain. And yes, I did shake the dust off your feet, my feet, and walked. Yeah, I mean, I did. I just kept moving forward because I endured a lot of pain and suffering in my life. There was a lot of chapters in my life. There was like a new chapter, and when it came to the darkness and to the pain, whether it was a physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain, it's like, oh, this is added to my book. This could be good. This is good. This is, it's not good, but yet I just felt like, yeah, bring it on. I mean, I grew up like in the 80s, and there was a commercial says, life cereal, give it to Mikey, he'll eat it. I felt like, give the suffering and the pain to Gina, she'll endure it. That was my motto. That's how I thought. And that stuck with me. Even in my adulthood, I really never grew up out of that because I was still so broken on the inside. Because, after I bartended, like I said, during that time, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. So she died. I happened to be at home to take care of her. Everybody else was out of the house. So I saw my mother die from bone cancer, terminally ill. Death. Oh my God, what is death? I'm 23 years old, nothing. So, okay, I come back to my Catholic roots. I was raised Catholic, didn't need God, didn't need the church. Come back. And then here I received what one would say a conversion, coming back to Christ, coming back to Jesus, a Jesus lover or like that. And that's when I decided to join the convent. And this is all part of my story. This is all part of my book in a sense. It's going through my life, going through all the pains, the suffering, the turmoil, the rejections, because even as a nun, once again, this is my life. I thought this is it. Okay, it's not my Prince Charming, but hey, I'm marrying God. And I married God. I was a nun for 12 years. I gave my life, blood, sweat, and tears. I laid down my life. And we lived in the South Bronx, so I worked with everyone, the poor, the homeless, anyone, and that is my heart because by nature I'm a compassionate person, and I had a smile, but once again I was broken on the inside. And living in the community of sisters in the convent, I thought that was my life, but yet after 12 years they kicked me out. Make a real long story short, because it is in my book, I was emotionally abused. So I'm now more broken. I have a broken heart. I leave the convent at the age of 42. By now, I should love myself, right? At the age of 42, or by now, one would think, okay, granted, I didn't get married or have kids because I joined the sisterhood. I gave up that, being a mother and everything like that. I gave up my whole life. But here, I'm back in the world and I lived a very austere life. I was lost. I was broken, couldn't understand what was happening to me in one sense. I was full of fear, full of anger, and I'm like, God, how could you do this to me? You married me and now you're rejecting me? So these are all these feelings that it's all in my book. It's all part of it. And I didn't realize it. I was shaking the dust off my feet and I kept walking without even me realizing it. Now, when I left the convent, I would share stories about what happened, and they would say, oh, you should write a book. I said, I was full of anger, full of resentment. I said, I can't write a story now. It's going to come out of anger and resentment. So I put that aside. And then I continue my journey. And then I finally come to the Jersey Shore. And, I should say after the convent, I went to live with men and women with disabilities because I didn't know how to live. I didn't know how to participate in the life, in the world. I didn't know how to get a cell phone. I didn't know how to do a computer, turn on the TV, any of that. And this was late 2000 that I left, 2008. So don't ask me who was famous in 2000 because I wouldn't even know because we didn't have a TV or anything, celebrities or anything like that, or any songs or anything. So here I had to relearn. So I'm living with these men with disabilities, unconditional love. I come to realize that, I'm tired of service. I said, I want to do what Gina wants to do. And what is Gina? Gina loves the beach. And that's where I ended up here on the Jersey Shore. First time rented an apartment. Now I'm maybe 43, I guess. I don't know. Didn't know. But it had furniture. How grateful I was because I wouldn't even know how to get furniture. And and then I went back to bartending. So bartending nun and bartending. Still searching for the life or meaning of life. Because now, I don't have a white house or a white picket fence. I don't have, anything like this. And that's something, I had a soul sickness. There was something still empty within me. And at that point, it was a lot of fear, worries, concerns, still anger. It took many years of healing. But that was part of my journey of my book of shaking the dust off my feet and walking. And so, yeah. And then I bartended. Okay, I'm going to find it, right? This is it. I'm going to find my guy or whatever. I still don't know what I'm going to do. And then I met Danny. I did. I met a guy. Oh, thank God. There's
the
somebody
audience now is cheering right now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, this is it. I found a guy who loves me for me, where I experienced the love from the sisters the way they would love pizza. You know what I mean? That wasn't for me. I compared all that. And so anyhow, Danny comes into the bar. We hit it off, talk. Didn't know how to relate to guys, so I'm learning. I didn't tell him I was a former nun at one time. Because I used to tell the guy, like if I had met guys prior to that, I was like, oh yeah, I was a former nun, never hear from them, scare them away. So with Danny, I was like, okay, breathe. And finally I told him I was a former nun, didn't scare him. Come to find out he was an alcoholic, drinking. Didn't really know what an alcoholic was. So, but God, you could have stopped him. I was a nun, you can answer my prayers like this and that. And, but it didn't scare me. So because when he was trying to stop, and when he did stop drinking, he was a great man. He was a great man, simply sick. Did not know much about alcoholism. I went to Al-Anon, which is a 12-step program, learned. I said, okay, now, Danny, you stop. I didn't, I'm trying to control him, all those isms, one would say. And he did, fighting his own demons. And then, and guess what? God answered my prayers because he found sobriety. And it's like, yeah, we got it. We got it. We live in Timbuktu, wherever supports your sobriety, because he found it out west. So he comes back. Another goal, plans of my life. And he drove cross country with mom in the car with his mother, and I wasn't in the car. I couldn't go, but yet they drove, and I get that dreaded phone call. Even though I prayed, put the rosary in the car, the holy water. Yeah, God, this is it, because he's sober. I get that dreaded phone call that they got into a tragic car accident in Indiana. The mom died, burned up, and Danny burned up. Once again, why? Why me, God? At this point, why? Like, here I am. I'm like, I take a deep breath. I go out there, of course, to be with him, to support him, because he did survive. Oh, God, that's great. Danny, God saved you from this fire for us. For you to stay sober, to be sober, to live a life. We got involved with the rooms of AA at there, as well as Al-Anon. But yet, I still don't know much about alcoholism, don't know much about alcoholics or addicts. What do when they're in pain? They drink. They can't help. That's what one of the symptom is, picking up, because they were in such pain. He saw his mom burned up, so he picked up. He relapsed. I'm like, oh my God, again. And so here, I was just praying, I'm like, okay, and I kind of flipped out, because how could you do this, God? How could this? How could you, like this? And this was about 12 years ago now, because March 20th, coming up, 2025, I found him dead from this disease of alcoholism. So that was it. That was it. My life I was done. I like you, I kept pushing forward. I didn't want to push anymore. I was done. I wouldn't take my life, but I was like, what? It's not worth for me. It's not living. I'm just simply existing in this life. My purpose is to suffer. My purpose is rejection. My purpose is not to get what I want in life. Let everyone else have that peace and serenity, not Gina. And I really believed that, felt that, and lived in that monster, how you would say it. Really, I really did. Never smiled for a while. And so what did I do? I did come back to the Jersey Shore. I thought maybe Danny was alive. I mean, that's how my mind was crazed. That mom was alive. Yeah, that was like my wishful thinking, like this was a whole nightmare. And but yet, it took me a while to realize he's not walking through that door again. and so then I continued my journey, and God brought me I went into the rooms of AA just to hear why people get sober, and Danny didn't. That was sort of like my anger. That was sort of like, maybe that was my pushing forward without me realizing it. So I went into these rooms to say, you guys are all, I was angry at them. I wanted to kill them all. And as I did not identify myself as an alcoholic, because I'm not an alcoholic. That was my strong, but yet 10 years ago, on April 2nd, 2015, after going to these rooms every day and just listening and angry, and eventually kind of sharing and everything. And then a friend of mine had approached me and says, Gina, you come here every day for about 10 months and you say you're not one of us, but what is your relationship with alcohol? Aha. I had to think about that. Look at that in my past. Yeah. Because I had but how could it be me? I have a great smile. No, I'm Gina Economopoulos. I'm sister. How could that be? And when my friend planted that seed, I did look at it and prayed about it, thought about it, whatever. And then on April 2nd, 2015, I happened to have I had raised my hand to identify myself not as an alcoholic, but that day I said, my name is Gina, I am an alcoholic. And I was like, oh my gosh, where did this come from? and then from that day forward, but at that time, I always share this because at that time, everything I was carrying, the insecurity, the fear, the anger, the resentments, everything, every pain, every tragedy, every loss, every grief, everything that I was running away from opened up my heart, my mind, my soul, my body. And boy, was I in more pain than ever. And, when you have an open scab and the wind comes and it's like, and that's how I felt. And then, there was an inside voice that says, oh, what do you want to do with this? Do you want to go drink it away, or do you want to go on your self-pity couch and be the victim your whole life? Yeah. So slowly but surely, I'm a slow learner. Took me many, 49 years just about to get into the rooms, which I knew I could have used them 30 years ago, but I didn't. It just wasn't meant to be. And so in the last 10 years, I've been sober and clean, a sober woman of faith. I came back to God. He never left me, but I got a new life, a new relationship, I refocus. I love you, refocus, a new mindset. I know who I am. Granted, I'm an alcoholic, but I'm one in recovery and in sobriety, that I work a 12-step program. And plus, I have other resources that helps me to grow, to live this life in a healthy solution, to live this life to live life on life's terms, whatever God gives me, instead of going, oh, look at me, poor me, like this. Oh, okay, what can I do with this? Yeah, it's painful. I'm angry, but I'm afraid. But it doesn't have control over me anymore. And that's the freedom I experience today. And I continue as I stay sober one day at a time and live my life to my best ability. So
once again, listen on Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our guest today, Gina. Go to her website. You can see it scrolling down there. But for those who are listening to audio, is GinaEcon.com. Talking about her book, Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk, and also talking about her life. Story is like a movie. I would say it's a miracle in so many ways. For you being your right mind is a miracle and powerful, because there's a lot of reasons for you to be bitter, to say, wipe your hands and say the heck with everything. Because, I mean, the story with the car accident, if you were reading a book or if you was in the middle of watching a movie, that scene alone would have you question what's next. Because a lot of times when we are going through something horrific, we only have two choices. We stop and say that's it, or we are brave and we take the next step. So the title of your book is a perfect title, because in order for people to move, sometimes they do have to dust themselves off. Sometimes they have to be reminded that they are still valuable, because the easiest way for someone to be complacent or plateau is for them to stop believing that they are worth something on this planet. And a lot of times we don't understand how much good we have until we see others with lack. And sometimes I think, me personally speaking, disclaimer, that sometimes we do have to go through certain tragedies to understand that sometimes we have to be humbled in order for us to experience the good on the other side. And it's not to say that you weren't humble. You were definitely humble your whole life. I mean,
no,
the hand you were dealt wasn't a full hand of spades. But I think if people are truthful, they will say that they too weren't dealt a handful of spades. Sometimes we're dealt the worst hand possible. but I think it's always strategic that it was a signature that we were able to use what we were dealt with to beat the odds. And that's what makes the stories like the ones you shared uh, worth telling, because somebody's going to watch this and listen to this and say, wow, I never knew when I first saw her appear on the screen that that story was coming out of her mouth.
Well, thank you so much, and it's so true because like even today, the book "Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk" it is appropriate of my whole life, but I realize even in situations today, when I receive a negative thought or if I receive this or something happens that I may not like, okay, I got to shake it and move. I got to shake it. God's here and move. So this journey, I realize more and more even as as I published it, as I'm promoting, it's like, okay, I have to keep moving forward. I have to keep shaking the dust because some things I don't like in life. I'm human, some things I get afraid of or whatever. But yet it's like, okay, breathe, breathe. What are my tools? What can I do? I could shake the dust. I could keep walking. I look in hindsight of my experience and I'm here sharing my experience. And I'm like, okay, there is a God. I could keep doing it. I could keep getting through this day. And that's why in our program, we say it's one day at a time. I'm just living in today. So
that's why I do my show off script. That's why, because the way it flows perfect. I can't believe we already passed the time. I don't even care about the time.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you good, because that's the way it flows and that's the way it should be. One thing that entered my mind was when you were talking is that sometimes our future self is asking our current self to level up, because an individual will never reach their full capacity of their potential until they deal with the current now moment.
Yeah.
And that moment, it could be heavy, it can be dark, it can be crazy, it can be chaos, it can be depressing. Just fill in your favorite sad song. It can be that too. But the future self, I believe, is always calling us to go beyond what we think we can do.
Yeah.
So, AKA, God is always in the future, right? Because he created time himself. I think he's always calling us to strive to be the best version of ourselves. And the only way we can do that is if we move, if we dust off our feet and move. Because you can't ever write the next chapter if you don't finish the current one you're in right now. And we always want to go ahead of time. We want to speed up the clock. And we want to say, well, God, come on, just hurry up and make it done. And he's like, nah, I'm going to make you wait. I'm going to make you ask me questions. I'm going to make you ask me, where am I? Because in this season, what you're doing is you're preparing for the stewardship that you will have to do in the next. And the only way you can be successful in the next season is if you are stuck in the mud of this mess season.
I have to say quickly, when you were talking about that, I was saying, yeah, we have to be the best version of ourselves. I said that in my mind, and you said it right there. That to me is God. I was like, oh my God. I said I was going to say that. And when you shared that, it was the exact moment that was going through my mind. Because nobody really hears that.
I'm glad that that's something that happened, because a lot of things we cannot explain. And anyone that says they can, I say run away from that person, because that is totally false. No one can predict anything in this life. The only thing that you can predict is your next choice.
Amen.
That's what we have power to control. We get to control if we want to move or if we want to stay put. We get to control if we want to be happy or we want to be sad. Now, when people say, oh, you can't really control if you can be happy. No, red flag. You get to choose the life you live by what you do right now.
Amen.
And I always say this, and the only reason I'm saying this because like we already on the rabbit hole, so I might as well go all the way in. Last thing I would say is this takes me back when I first started the show in 2017. And I've been sharing the story a lot, but it's because if people understood where we started to where we are globally, is mind blowing. But one thing I said in the barbershop in one of the episodes was our life is a blank canvas, but our actions are the paint that we leave our mark on history. So, in order for us to paint our masterpiece, we have to actually move. That's the
Yeah.
problem. See, when people watch the show, listen to the show, and they see all the celebrities and guests and authors and people like you sharing their story, their pain points, and their climax of refocus and getting it right and making it happen, and bam, got success. They don't always understand that is you. Like when you're listening to the show, watching the show,
Yeah.
that's you. Like you're just in your chapter one. People like Gina's in her chapter 300.
Yeah.
People like the other celebrities or whatever, they're in chapter 350. But there's no difference between value. People won't say there is, but that's because they caught up with what the world determines is good or not good enough.
Yeah.
But when you take away what the world says and you pay attention to what God is actually telling who you are, then now your value system is measured by what he says, not what others believe.
Yeah. Totally. I could go on and on, but that is so true. Yes, it takes a journey to get to that point. And when you think you're at that point, there's a lot more. The door keeps opening more and more to say, I got to explore this part and embrace this part within me. It's an adventure, but it's a happy adventure and sad at times. But yes, you're right. We choose, and it's all about acceptance. That's where we are today. That's where I am.
Well, we could probably have this conversation for the next 40 hours, but got to pay the bills and let people know that you can go to Gina's website is ginaecon.com. Make sure you get a copy of her book. I'm sure it's available anywhere you buy a book online, but title is Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk. This was a great story. I hope people really understand what's powerful about what you went through.
Yeah.
Is that you're still here today to help somebody else get through.
Amen.
And I said this also in the barbershop. I promise I'm going to shut up in the show. I said in the barbershop also, too, is that sometimes our pain, when we are able to survive that horrific pain, it's that very pain that becomes medicine.
Yeah.
Because now we get to tell people, not only did I survive this, but now I can tell the story.
Yeah.
I can tell you that whatever you're going through, if you don't quit, we're going to see you on the podcast or see you writing your books or see you. See, that's we get from point A and we worry about A, B, C, and D, and we try to strategize and have every point that we want in life to work. Like you said it in the show, you miss so many goals that it's not funny. Like it's sad, but you still smile because you get to tell people that I may had not got what I wanted, but I got what I was supposed to have.
Yeah. And last thing I'll say is that everything that I went through and everything I share plus more, because I kind of went on the top, is who I am today. It became the person I am today. And I wouldn't change it a bit. Any of my experience, even though I wouldn't change it a bit, and I wouldn't give it to my worst enemy.
Yeah. I mean, that's the definition of greatness, is that everything that has value has a sacrifice. And if it has no value, that means there was no sacrifice. Yeah. So I'll leave it at that. You've been listening, Refocused Radio, and watching this online, talking to our guest, Gina. Go to her website, ginaecon.com, and get her book, support what she does. And like always, Gina, I want to say for you, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your service.